လူတစ်ယောက်ဟာသူ့ဝါသနာပါတဲ့အတတ်ပညာတစ်ခုကိုအတမဝင်ကြောင်းအနေနဲ့ရပ်တည်ခွင့်ရှိရမယ်
Today we're going to start creating the game with the 3D game walls. So I'll give the name as 3D game walls and select the 3D template and click create. Then it will pop up the Unity the layouts. So if you cannot see these layouts, you can click on the window layout and select revert factory settings. So it will show up this kind of by default layouts. So in the games, in the left side, where we see the two things. One is the main camera. Second thing is the directional lights. If you select the cameras on the left side, on the right side of the panels, you see the setting of it. If you select the light in the left side, on your right side, it will show the setting of that. So whatever thing that you select on the left hierarchy, its setting will be shown on the right panels. All right. And of course you can position the lights later. So underneath there's the assets. Assets is where you can place all the 3D objects and all the files assets there. Now we'll click on the 3D objects and the terrain. Okay, so this is the terrain. Okay, game object, 3D objects, terrain. So terrain is where the Unity will start doing the grounds. Okay, the first click item, you can click on the move left and right, and the second crossing that you can use to rotate the terrain by holding the alternate key, the alter key, and the left mouse click, and you can rotate around on that, right? And you can open on and off the lights. So normally, the moment you click on the cross buttons, you will see those XYZ A6 on the terrain. All right, and you can even move the terrain, the XYZ A6 to either center or the pivots settings. By clicking the center of pivots, you can move the XYZ directionals, the A6 on that. So now you can also rotate the terrain by holding the alter key and left mouse click. Okay, and in the terrain, the first settings that you can see is the layout of the neighboring terrain. Sometimes you will need more than terrain. So in this case, you can use this, click this button and then click on the left mouse click. It will create the multiples terrain on that. All right. So in this case, we only need the one plot of terrain. So we'll delete on that. So only one terrain plot is enough for us. So after that, the second buttons, and after you click the second button, you see the drop down list. In the drop down list, the multiples brush is there. So first we will select rise or lower terrain, the brush, and then they have multiples, the brush here. This rise or lower terrain provide the brush that can change the height and low and height setting of the ground. So you can select the brush and you can start brush it, and it will create like this kind of hill, valley, everything's there based on the shape of the brush. So in the brush, you can also define the brush size. So based on the brush size, the size of the mountain will be changed, and based on the opacity, the effect of the mountain will be changed. If you have a higher opacities, only in the small brush, it will be high up the big mountain like that. Right? So different brush can give you the different shape of terrain, like mountains and the valleys, everything like that. So when you design the terrain, you have to make sure that you have to see the terrain from all 360 degrees. So every time you brush and create the mountain or terrain, you need to hold the alter key and then rotate the terrain map and then just brush it according to it. So again, you can use different brush to create the different shape of the mountains. And if you don't want to be, or if you want to be reverse the brush, you can always press the Ctrl Z to make it undo, or you hold the shift key and brush. Shift brush will give you the lower down the mountain, or the delete the mountain. Okay, so normal brush, left click and brush can give you the mountain, and hold the shift key and brush, it will reduce down the mountain, or you can delete back the mountain on that. All right, that's why we call this is higher, lower, or higher the mountains. Okay, so multiple brush size and multiple opacities can give you the different shape of the mountains. All right, so let's try some brush there. And this is your fast game walls. It's okay if you want to make it a little bit try and error. And again, like I said, if you want to delete something, you hold the shift key and brush. It will delete the mountain, or it will flat down the mountains on that areas. If you can, so sometime after you create the mountain, if you want to create the lower down the terrain for the river or the lakes, you can hold the shift key and brush. So shift and brush will clear up the height of the mountain. So this way you can cut the mountain on that, right? By clicking the shift key and the brush. Shift brush will give you the cut in the mountains. Right, so now I'll delete some of the mountain area by holding the shift key, and I can reduce down some of the mountain by holding the shift and brush. All right, so shift brush can give you the delete and the lower down the mountains. So that's right. So either you can do the normal brush, or you can do the shift brush to make lower and higher the mountain on that. Right. So normal brush and the shift and brush is like go up and down. You can adjust the size of the mountain, as well as you can adjust the height of the mountain as well. All right, after that, the second menu that we will select is a paint terrain. It's a texture terrain. Okay, so first of all, we don't have any texture yet, so we're going to import some of the package which involve all the textures. So we will be using the Unity standard assets. There's an environment package which is came together with the Unity. So under the standard assets, we will drag the environment package inside the assets folders. Just click the environment package and then drag it inside the asset folders. And when the pop-up menu is pop up, just click import. Okay, just the menu is pop up, then just click import. It will import all the textures and trees and 3D models and waters, whatever thing that you need it to use it in the environment. This package already have it. So this is a free package from Unity, and you can also download from the Unity Asset Store. All right, after import all the environment package, you click on the textures, and we'll click on the create layer. So we'll select on the first layer of image for the terrain. So just select any image on that. So Unity will show all the available images on that, but you have to select the right images on that. So in our cases here, I will be selecting the grass hill albedo as our fast terrain layers. Okay, just double click on that. Then again, we click on the edit terrain textures, create layer. Okay, so just create layer, and then we just edit terrain textures, and then create layer. So we will be adding we're going to be adding the new layer that, and also you can also start brushing up. Just select the terrain textures and you can start brushing up that, right? So you can brush the terrain textures here and there. So currently we have the grain brush, so this brush you can just start painting the textures. Okay, just select and then brush the terrain textures. All right, after that we add one more layer, just like create terrain, create layer, just create layer, and this time we're going to be select the sand albedo, the sand textures. Double click on that, and then you click on the sands, and then you just brush the sand textures also. So you can add create multiple layer of the textures, and you can brush accordingly onto the terrain. So sometimes we may need multiple textures to decorate it on the terrains. Some area will be sandy, some area will have a green, and maybe like the high mountain will have the white colors like snow mountain. So all these textures you can add the multiples, create the multiple layer of that. In this case now I'll add one more layer for the muddy ground. Just select the muddy grounds and then I can textures, and then I can just brush it. So you can add multiple textures in the layer, and then you can brush accordingly on that, right? So different place of the terrain can have or should have the different shape of the textures. Okay, after that we'll be using the third menu, which is called set height. So set height is very useful if you want to create the terrain with certain height. Let's say sometimes you want the terrain with fixed height. Let's say that I want the mountain with 20-degree height, or 20 feet or 100 feet. So after you fix the height and you select the brush, and when you brush it, we notice that this time it will be kept, the top will be kept at fixed point. Let's say if you kept at 100, it cannot be go beyond 100. So the mountain top will be flat. So this tool is very useful if you want to be flat down the top of the mountain, or if you want to create the terrain with fixed height. Okay, so the usage is quite simple. You just set the desired height in the height, and then you use a brush, so the terrain will be cut off in that height, right? You can use it either to create the new mountain, or you can even use it to cut the existing mountain with different set height. Okay, set height will fix the height, and they will cut the mountain accordingly based on the height that you want. Alright, after the set heights, we're going to be using the fourth menu, which is called smooth heights. This smooth height is also very useful. So this brush is to smoothen up the whole mountains. So whatever the mountain, the terrain textures, terrain surface that is become edge or like rough one, you can use this brush to make it to more smoother one. Okay, this brush will make your terrain to be much more smooth, so that your characters or your car can be drive on the smooth surface. Okay, so this smooth heights is very useful to make it all the surface to be become like rounded, and all the sharp edge, everything will be gone after you brush with the smooth height. Okay, after smooth height, we use the stamp terrain. This is the last brush. So this stamp terrain is sometimes you need to create the terrain with the fixed mountain shapes. So this is just like you're putting the stamps on the papers, or like you're adding the chops on the papers. So it's much more look the same like its name. It's just like stamping on the terrain. Okay, just press the stamps on the mountain on the terrain. After that, we're gonna be click on the button with the tree shapes, and then that is the trees that you can select in there. So before you add in the trees, you have to make sure that your brush size is lower down, and the tree density is also have to be lower down. So, and you just brush it wherever the places that you want to put the trees on that. All right. So this is how you can add the trees. If you want to brush take out the tree, just same as like terrain, just shift and brush back, so all the trees will be gone. All right. You can add the multiple trees, and you can also same like that. You can just click the edit trees, add trees, and select the trees, and then you can just put the multiple trees on the multiple places on that, so different places can hold the different trees on that. And you want to brush, if you want to delete it out, just brush and shift and brush back, so the trees on that area will be gone. All right, so just add all the trees that you want. Okay. So all these trees are 3D models that already imported together with the environment package. If you want to use other custom trees, or if you already have any trees that you have already drawn, you can also edit in the assets, and you can also select it from here, and you can brush and use it on that. All right. So another thing that you can use it is a mass place tree. Sometimes you want to put the multiple trees at the same time. Then you can click on the mass place trees, and then set the number of trees that you want it, and click. So it will automatically randomly put all the trees on the terrain. Okay, after that, the last one is the edit details, which is also you can edit all the grass and the small flowers on the terrains. So I will be selecting the one of the grass terrain from the assets, and then I just select edit details, add grass textures, and then click on the small circles beside the pattern. Just double click on it, select, double click, click add. You get this brush for the grass. So then you can brush it, so you cannot be see clearly sometimes can on the top because it's there, but sometimes the camera is very high on that, so you need to be zoom in slightly a little bit lower down near to the ground, because this grass or the small flowers are very near to the ground, so that you need to zoom in to see the actual the position of it. Sometimes if you are zooming out and if you see from the top, this cannot be see clearly, but it's there. So you can zoom in and then you will see that, or sometimes you can run it, then also only then you can see that. So you can add the multiple grass textures, same like the multiple trees, and then you can use a brush on that. But take note of that, adding the grass and all these the trees, they are also resource hungry, and they are also eating up our main memory as well as the graphic memories. So please use only the right amount of trees and the grass that you needed, and take note of that, the higher number of grass and the trees will also impact the performance of your games. So only use it whenever that you will really need it necessary of that. Otherwise, these grass and all these trees, you cannot be add so much thing in the games. It will be definitely slow down your performance of the game. And the last one is the terrain settings, whereas you can see the width and height of the terrain currently is 1000. If you want much more bigger terrain, you can also change it here. And there's one more called the edit density, the tree density, the detail distance, all the terrain settings. You can change it here. Normally we use it the default settings, and we don't change it not much. Okay, so and after that you click on the save, and then you save the scene, because everything that you make the changes is already saved in the scene. All right, so after you add all the terrain setting, everything's here, then what we'll do is we'll see how it look like. So you just click on run and you'll see the view like this, which is because of our camera is at the X0, Y0 and Z10, which is the corner of the terrain. So what we'll do is we'll move the camera to the little bit inside the terrain, right, so that I can see. So I just move the cameras a little bit center of the terrain, and just I just move on that. So if you move the objects, you try to move it from the top of the arrows, right? You try to move it the the arrows top by clicking the top of the arrows, and then just pull it up. All right, so now that we run, then you will see that this is the game walls. So it look nice. All right, so this is when you run, you'll see the game wall from the cameras, because our camera is now positioned, fixed position at the center of the terrain. All right, this is how you can look like in the actual terrain when you run it on the games. 766, by selecting the difference, the resolutions, your game can be synced. Okay. For the time being, I'll only check the free aspects. So this is a free aspect view of that. So you can always change your game views of that, right? And I can click on the maximize and play buttons on the bars. So after you click on the maximize and play button, then when you run it, your game will be run it in the full screen. All right, now what we do is we're going to be add the standard package. This is called characters. So just click the character package inside the assets, and just click and drag enter the assets. So all the character package will be going in. So just click inputs if the pop-up is coming up. So in this character package, you have all the first person, third persons, and rollable, all these. The prefab are already inside this package. This is a standard Unity package, and you can free download from the asset store. just wait for a while it is important. Alright, so after importing is done, then you open up the standard assets, and you will see the character pack folders there. You open the character folders, so this is the assets, another scene. So under the character folders, you'll be see the three subfolders like rigid body and fast persons, all these folders. Just click on the characters and look for the prefab folders. Like, okay, this is they do have prefab folders there. So just like prefab, they have two first person controllers. One is a first person controller, another one is first person controller with rigid body. So just go to the standard assets, character, and prefab, first person controller, prefab. Then just click the rigid body FPS controller. You see that the blue color cube. Just click the rigid body FPS controller and then drag it onto the 3D map, onto the terrain. So you can position it accordingly. Just double click on the FPS rigid body controller. Then if your character is synced or touched in the ground or synced in the ground, just make sure that your character is not inside the ground and is above the ground. Make sure that everything is positioned well. So you just click and drag it. See? So this is your first person characters. We have it's a combinations of camera and colliders together. So you can position it, your first person characters. Just make sure that your character is not synced in the ground. It should be always above the ground. It can be positioned in the air, don't worry, because it has a rigid body, so it can be slowly drag it down when you run up. But make sure that your character must be at above the ground at all time. Alright, after that you run. Then you'll see that now you can see the whole wall very clearly. And WSAD, the key is automatically active. W is for going forward, S is backward, and space is for jump, and A and D is to move in sideways. The same as like WSAD, you can also use up key, down key, and left key, right key, or all these arrow key can also use on that. Alright, you can also use the mouse to look around with the mouse look. You see the skies, and you see notice that the sun and sunlight and shadow, everything is already there, right? All your design of the mountain and the trees, setting, everything, you can see it now clearly here. All right, so this is, you cannot see the characters because this is a first person controller, which means that the camera, you can see the feeling like you are actually seeing it from the character eyes. All right, so this is why we call first person controllers, right? So because you can see the whole world as from the character eyes. All right, so after that we stop. Then let me add some features like 3D, and you just add the wind zone, right? 3D object, game object, 3D object, wind zone. So this will be adding the wind effect. All right, so you can position it at any time, any places, no problem. And you can also change the speed of the wind by changing the main wind and the turbulence wind. So after you change, then just go and see near to the trees. See, now you can see that your trees start shaking because of there's a wing there, right? You will notice that if you're far from the trees, you cannot see it clearly, but if you're very near to the trees, you'll be start seeing that all the trees start shaking because of the wind factors, right? They are not shaking the trees from the very far because of to save the rendering and to save the graphic card memory. They can only shake the trees which is near to you, right? So by playing around with the main and the turbulence wind, you can even create the different kinds of wind effects, from small breeze wind to all the way to like tornado stars, like this kind of high wind, right? So this is the wind factors that you add. and wind factor can be only visible through the trees, right? Without the trees, you cannot even see that wind is high or low. You cannot even see that, right? So to understand and to see the features of the wind, you must have some trees on the ground at first, right? And you can even change the wind type to directional or spherical. Directional is like the wind will be flowing only from the one side, and the spherical is if the wind will be coming from the all 360 degrees. Okay, after the wind zone, we're going to be at the water, all right? So the water is under the standard assets, under the environment, and you open the environment, there's a two water folders, water and water basics. Water basic is the low level waters. Water have the high level transparent waters is under the waters folders. They have two waters, water and waterfalls. Both are animated. Water is the sphere shape. Waterfall has like wave styles. So we're using the water and the prefab. We're using the Water Pro Daytime. Just click and drag the Water Pro Daytime. You will notice that there's a small circles. The shape water is there. It's a one-sided materials, so that it's just like small plane with the water textures on it. So you can click and you can rotate the water, and you can by clicking on the scales, you can also expand the water size based on the size of the lakes or the river that you want to put. So let me stretch a little bit the waters, and you have to put it the waters above the terrain so that the water can be visible. All right, so I will stretch the water a little bit, and then I try to make sure that this water is covered enough to all the lower terrain layers, and then I put it here. So again, this is like water is just like small thin plate with the cover up with the water textures. So it's a one-sided. So if you're in the above the waters, you can even see the water shape, but if you're under the water, you cannot see the water textures because it's only one-sided thing. Right? So let's run it on that. So let me run. Okay, see, now you see the waters. See, if you're under the waters, you cannot see it. Then if you're above the water, you can see that, right? Which is because just now I said this is water is a one side, it is small thin plate. So if you're under the plate, you cannot even see it because it's a one side. The water texture is put it on the one side of the plane. On the other side, there's no rendering, no textures. So you have to make sure that its water is just nothing but the small thin sheets. There's no solid water like in the real walls. All right, there's no solid waters. It's just all the small sheets of the planes with water textures animated. So always make sure that your water is under the your camera so that you can see the water textures very well, right? So if you're under the sheets, or if you're under the water plane, you cannot even see the waters, right? So water is a very thin small sheet. There's no such thing called solid in the 3D walls. Right? Okay, so after you position it, you just make sure that you run the waters. See, I lower down the water so that my camera is always high above, and I cannot be going down to the camera, down to the waters, so that there's no way you can see that the other side of the waters, right? So I already lower down the waters. So your camera and your cursor must be always above the water surface, so that you can see the all water rendering, right? Okay, last thing we're going to be edit is under the window. There's a rendering. There's a lighting settings. You click on the window, renderings and lighting settings, and you scroll it down. And under the other setting, you're going to see the fog, FOG. So fog is just like the small kind of like snow and all this kind of fog. You can blur the skin of that. So I will select the white color of the fog color. I check the fog and then I just change the color to white of the fog color. So after that, I'm going to be go back to the scene. Now you will be notice that your scene is covered with the white color fox on that. All right. So this is very useful to blur the scene, or especially when you are using the environmental effects, or if you don't want to show the whole scenes to the users. This fog is very useful on that. You can change the multiple colors of the fox, especially like in the night time. If you use a dark color fox, black color fox, your visibility of the color, your color visibility will be very limited. So this is a very useful setting. So it's under the rendering, lighting settings, and the fox. Right, you can even change the different color of the fox based on your sky colors and the themes of the games. Right? So I'm going to change the blue color fox. Now you will notice that this is the blue color fox on that. All right. So you can add these multiple environment textures, just only one click on that. All right, you can test it out. And then I would like to suggest that you add this fog setting at the very last, only after you have designed everything well on that. Otherwise, this fog will be cover up your design and it's hard to design the thing. So I'll check for a while, and while we're doing the designs, it's much better to be off the fogs so that everything can be seen very clear on that. All right.